Good evening. My name is Petra Wright. I am the gallery director of Gloria Delson Contemporary Arts, also known as GDCA Gallery. Tonight, we are delighted to welcome you to a virtual reception of our 2 April exhibitions, a group show, Vibration, and our solo show by Cynthia Ann Swan, V. Both exhibits are on display through April 30th and are available for in-person viewing by masked appointment. All of the works are for sale. So if you see something that grabs your interest, please contact us. For immediate reference, there is an exhibition catalog on our website. The address is gdcagallery.com. And under current exhibition, if you scroll right past the installation stills, you will find each artist and their artworks itemized with all their particulars. We are now going to begin by taking you through a slideshow presentation with the photographs generously and beautifully provided by Jason Ruscio. And we are going to move front to back through the gallery and going into each of the artists' sections, at which point we will be joined by the artists to speak about their work. In a few cases when the artists cannot be here tonight, I will hold their place and read their statement for them. At the end of the presentation, don't go anywhere. We are going to have a Q&A with our artists. So if you have any questions at any point throughout the entire presentation, you can type your question into your chat window. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, you will see a little chat window. And if you type it in there, at the end, after the slideshow presentation, we will field them to the artists and they can answer them. So please stick around. So let's get started. I am going to share my screen. Here we go. There we are. Move myself aside. So this is Vibration and Cynthia Ann Swan V. Vibration, our group show. Participating artists are Nurit Avesar, Suzanne Belcher, Anthony Caldwell, Edem Ellis, Siri Friends, Stacia Gates, Sylvia H Goulden, Karen Hansen, Jonathan Jerald, Suki Kuss, Ryan Lane, Stephen Schubert, and Bill Sherwood, and of course our solo artist, Cynthia Ann Swan. I do that every time. So we are going to start with Vibration. Vibration offers visual meditations on the 1-year anniversary of the pandemic's stay-at-home order, articulating nostalgia as well as optimism and hope as we seek to establish a new normal. And when thinking about this show, this is what came to me. We have come full circle, one full length around the sun. We've circled back and reached the point of entry, shifted, broken, once removed, syncopated in our hopes, our joy. Our hearts now skip a beat for those we lost. We cannot return to what was, but need discover who we must become and how to better care for one another. Excuse me. There is a palpable exhale. A weight has been lifted. It's the beginning of a sense of normalcy. Spring is in the air. Traffic, music, voices, laughter, a visceral energy filling the streets, like color, like vibration. Soundscapes layering themselves into the morning, through the afternoon, and out into the night. Promises of summer gardens, joyful reunions, ocean breeze and walks along the sand, raising the temperature of our collective presence. A joy that was safely tucked away, about to be released. So those are my thoughts on vibration. And with that, we have arrived at our first artist, Edem Elesh. Edem, this is a detail of his painting Mnemonic Devotion #1. And Edem's work typically communicates in multiple non-linear narrative layers through a blend of personal poetic symbolism and social commentary. He is also our art ambassador through his extensive exhibitions and travels and knowledge of foreign cultures, and they all, of course, inform his work. I'm going to read also from one of his statements. It says, I am exhibiting my new works from my Mnemonic Devotion series. In them, I celebrate a former world paradigm where the freedom to travel, to peacefully congregate, of free speech, of the free exchange of ideas, of personal autonomy, of human physical interaction, and freedom from censorship were the norm. But all being said, we are still free to travel in the mind. This is our inalienable right. He also says, remember your voices, your dreams, your freedoms. Hold them close. Do not release them easily, for they are you. And with that, I'd like to introduce Edem Elesh.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you, Petra, for a most wonderful introduction. Your show descriptions are fabulous. I hope you keep them for forever written down somewhere. They shouldn't be forgotten any more than the show should. So kudos to you. I'm going to keep it brief tonight. Hello, viewers. Hello, fellow artists in the show. I'm proud to be showing with you. Some of you I know very well. Personally, Siri, it's good to see you again. I saw you, God, what, over a year ago outside the gallery, unmasked. And the rest of you, those who I talked about last week or last month, I mean, last show, hello again. I really don't have much to add to Petra's wonderful introduction, reading my statement. It's all been said. So I'm celebrating a former paradigm that I hope returns. I keep my fingers crossed, but I want people to remember through my work what was the normal and what we're going to be asked to accept as the new normal. I urge a little bit of awareness, shall we say, for lack of a better word right now. I have nothing prepared to say. And that's all I'm prepared to say, really. Thank you, Petra. I'll let you move on with your show. It's always a pleasure to show at Gloria Dels, and Petra is the most wonderful gallery owner. And she invited me to be on the IAA board, and one thing led to another. And this piece is actually in Pershing Square right now, larger than life. I went to see it Sunday. It's wonderful. I mean, just the scale, if I could only work that big all the time. Anyways, to everyone out there, hope for the future. Keep your wits about you. And that's all I have to say for now. Thank you very much for the floor.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Edem. And before you go, I just again want to thank you, for your kind words, but also your work always leads me to learn new things. And I love kind of traveling down your complex imagery. But in this case, the two things I learned, you're very much responsible for the circle motif that you will be finding throughout this exhibit. We keep kind of returning to it. And so I'm very grateful for that. But also the idea of mnemonic, where I looked it up and I was really so taken with the idea that mnemonics is referred to as the art of memory, and that the ancient Greeks were saying there's two types of memory. There's an intrinsic memory, that we're born with, that we have. And I think that is the pull in your work that speaks to our common humanity. And then there's the second type of memory, which is in, the one that has to be learned and trained and practiced. And I feel that's the one that we need, that we get to use when we travel like you do and experience other cultures and exhibit art and exchange with other cultures. So anyway, thank you. Have a great night, Edem. So this leads us to our second artist. This is Stephen Schubert, and this is a detail of Stephen's painting, New Pleasures. He is exhibiting 2 other paintings along with it. Stephen cannot be here tonight, so I'm going to speak in his place. They are Sunline on the left and New Pleasures on the right. And because he cannot be here, I'm going to read his statement. Kitchen tools, foam, rags, boards, and anything from Home Depot can make interesting painting mates, but primarily I use a spackle knife. Dragging, spraying, dripping, smearing, and scraping are all part of the process. Varying amounts of pressure applied with my spackle knife enables me to create some control over the haphazard nature of my approach. I lay down up to 15 layers of paint and frequently finish with a resin top coat. Alternating this application with paint, resin, numerous times renders a startling effect in which the paint layers appear to float above the other layers. This causes the light to be trapped between the layers, giving a wonderful sense of inner illumination. And one thing I wanted to note also is that Stephen comes to his painting career by way of an acting career. And as part of that training, he's done a lot of the inner work, the emotional work and spiritual work that one does when training as an actor. And so I think it's really interesting that the concept of illumination is brought into his paintings as well, that transfers from all of that emotional and spiritual work. That is Stephen Schubert. And here we are at Siri, France. So this is a detail of Siri's painting Bougainvillea. And one of the things I love about Siri's process is that she often returns to certain motifs that she finds meaningful or that feed her. And she's always able to capture them in a very different way by shifting her perspective and allowing us a different perspective, and also capturing the subject at a different time of day with a different light value. And it completely changes the mood of the subject. So even though we've exhibited a Bougainvillea painting before, a diptych, and it was very different than this one. The feeling and the colors were quite different. I wanted to read her statement. This time for me is so much about paying close attention to my immediate surroundings. These Bougainvillea outside my window were fascinating to paint. I found the more I looked, the more I discovered in pattern and complexity. So please welcome Siri, France. Hi, Siri.
Thank you very much.
Are you there?
And thank you, Petra, for everything, for the introduction. I loved looking through the gallery. I miss seeing the gallery in person. It was so lovely to look through the show. It looks amazing. And hello to all the artists and everyone who's watching. This Bougainvillea is my second Bougainvillea picture, a pandemic picture, if ever there was one. Just working from life. There were these Bougainvillea just surrounding my house, actually. And in this one, I was thinking about what I was after, because sometimes it's not clear when you're right in the thick of it. And I think Well, first of all, I really love having an open composition because it kind of allows for a little bit of abstraction to happen anyway. Things are kind of isolated, so they're less in context, as it were. And the other thing that I really noticed, particularly when I was working on this, it's working from life generally, I find really interesting, because you're spending so much time just contemplating something. And for that, you really sort of notice how the process of looking. And, you know, like particularly with this bougainvillea, there's an awful lot going on. And your eye is constantly darting all over the place and sort of finding points of interest and then zoning off somewhere else and returning. And, you know, there are certain places that you kind of return to again and again that are kind of a little sharper or got extra contrast or some kind of way that everything's sort of relating to each other that I find visually very fascinating. So, and then I thought, well, the way that I paint is very similar to that. You know, I like to have that kind of interplay between quite focus and then things that are less focused or a little bit less clear, you know, hard edges and soft edges. That sort of push and pull is so much a part of my, just about everything, all of my work. And it's kind of the subject of it in a way, just as much as the flowers, even though the flowers are lovely. And there is something kind of hard-edged and soft about bougainvillea that is really fascinating to paint, like I said in my statement. So that's about it, about that particular picture. Yeah, but thank you very much.
Thank you. And one thing I also, you know, what pops out for me in this picture is I always love your line, you know, when you do branches. And this, it seems to me like it might have been an artistic choice. It seems like in the centerpiece, like halfway down, that branch is almost floating on top.
Yes, well, you do get a sense when you look in there of these different layers, and that's why you really do notice more and more the longer you look. And the branches are so fine, and there are these spikes, you know, and they're so light, the light's hitting them so strongly, and then there's this depth behind them. So yeah, they're kind of floating. I'm glad you noticed that.
Oh yeah, and it again, it sort of brings a dreamlike and an impressionist quality to it. And also, again, your colors are always a composite. The darkness in this piece, again, you have a very specific palette. I've always kind of said that you have a mysterious palette to me. There's an element of what's unseen, you know, sometimes an element of turbulence, drama, and other times it's almost like a light fog or something that just obscures the emotional underpinning, and it's very mysterious, and you kind of lure us in that way. And the other thing, you've helped me kind of coin the phrase, I use this when I speak of you a lot, of in your colors and in your treatment of your subjects, a kind of an aching tenderness. There's almost like a little bit of, it seems like nostalgia, but it's clearly also a present tense painting, you know, because there's no time on a bougainvillea bush. It's not, so it's an emotional.
I'm very pleased that it has an emotional impact. I would love for that to be the case. That's an important thing to me.
Oh, good. Thank you, Siri, so much.
Your pleasure.
That is Siri France, and our next artist is Stacia Gates. This is a detail from her painting Ocean. Stacia is exhibiting 4 paintings from her Color Field Plaster series. And she also cannot be with us tonight, so I'm going to read her statement. I create two very different styles of artwork, and they are both very therapeutic for me. The beautiful feelings that I have and the meditative mindset that I am in during the creative process lifts me into a light so great. There's really no way for me to explain it in words, but I hope it translates into the art itself, and I hope that I bring some of that light to the viewer. In her most recent series of abstract mixed media paintings, Stacia reveals her most personal work to date. Intimate and soul-searching meditations in a near monochromatic palette, predominantly shades of blue. In a delightful twist, however, the artist utilizes industrial-grade plaster to create highly textured dreamscapes, ethereal and serene visual sojourns into the subconscious. And I just love the juxtaposition of the ethereal spiritual exploration with the plaster. That's the same way I love when artists sometimes use concrete to create these Japanese Zen pieces. I just adore that. And also I really love this wall, and I'm so pleased that I was able to show both of your pieces, Siri and Stacia's, back to back, because this was kind of an eye-opener for me when curating the show. I had no idea that they were going to look so good next to each other, that the blue was going to look so good with the magenta tones and vice versa. I didn't know. But once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And so that is one of the things. And then the last point I wanted to make about that blue is that throughout this show, you're going to notice, again, I mentioned the circular motif, but the other sort of repetitive echo is going to be a yin and a yang concept. And the show is called Vibration, be it intensity of color, be it gesture, be it whatever it is, but there will be points of calm in between. And that will anchor us and allow us to actually see the vibration and the movement. This brings us to Suki Kuss. Suki, this is a detail from her painting Sanctuary. And Suki is displaying selections from 3 different series this month. Going left to, well, not in that order, sorry. Celestial Navigation is on the left. The Edge of the World is on the right. And then the Sanctuary series is in the center. They are visually and metaphorically connected, in my opinion, by the metaphor of a map, each representing the search for a path towards their respective ends, which is, of course, no end at all, but rather a journey. And it's a journey towards strength, towards peace, towards truth, towards courage, and ultimately towards destiny. So with that, I'd like to welcome Suki Kuss.
Thank you, Petra. And thank you for doing such beautiful shows. And you're the best speaker I know. And I'm so proud to be represented by the gallery. It's still, I've only been here a year and I feel like a baby. Anyway, the Sanctuary series was created for a gallery exhibition called Haunted House. It was a one-woman haunted art. It was a one-woman show, and the Sanctuary series was created last minute, changing the theme of the show and the name. My family had suffered a great personal loss, and all of my work following the tragedy was affected and extremely hard to move through. As I worked on the new pieces, I realized that a cross was forming in each one. I honored that need for spirituality, and the symbols developed in a very organic. I'm sorry, I just had an asthma attack and I'm having a hard time speaking. Anyway, the symbols developed in a very organic way. Now, all of my work, all of my canvases are prepped in the same way. And as these are, there's layering with papers and ephemera such as vintage lace and fabrics, glossy and reflective elements. You can see within these pieces if you look very closely. The crosses themselves are formed from glass from a lantern that I had that one of my cats knocked over. And they had a beautiful feel to them just in their color and their brightness. And I used them all up on these two pieces, and it really informed me about the rest of the series. I also use, when I'm building my grounds, I use fashion patterns and vintage sheet music. And it's wonderful with the sheet music, because often you'll find notations that have been made by either the teacher or the student. And one time I picked up an absolutely ancient little book of sheet music through eBay, and got home and realized that some young girl back in history had used it as her diary and wrote all over it, her own feelings and emotions and what have you. Imagine her teacher would have been very unhappy. And I haven't used that particular little book because it's too personal. After covering the surface with these items, I paint over everything with a creamy paint that I have mixed. It's very technical, at Ace Hardware. And the textures that appear after I have dry brushed and put on the paint often dictate the theme of the piece. After all this work, I start to build my collages, allowing as much ground as I can possibly have to show through. And I build on that. If you look at the one on the left side of your screen, you'll see in each corner there is a great deal of pen work. And I saw plants and flowers, and I pulled out of the texture what I thought was a garden-like motif. And it seemed to work with the cross. And it turned out very nicely. I'm very proud of that piece. Now watch, you'll sell it. Anyway, you usually work without preconceived ideas of where the journey takes me. The finished piece is always a surprise and happy. Hopefully it's a happy surprise. My work is kind of a surgery, the kind that finds me patching, revisiting, and weaving through my own sense of personal history in order to connect the past to what makes sense of our world is today. And that's that.
Sorry, I muted myself. I had some back. So beautiful. And I'm so sorry. Are you okay?
I'm okay, but I'm going to get a bottle of water.
Okay. We can maybe talk a little bit more. As you know, I have so much to say about your work. Maybe just this one little thing, and then I'll let you run. Again, one of the things that kind of blew my mind is in looking at the piece after it was also lit and I moved across it, the light got caught on the glass and it reflected in my face. And you and I talked about that spiritual journey and searching for the light in the piece. And it was like, damn it, she physically, literally brought the light into the painting. You catch it and it's there for you. So I was just amazed by that. Bravo, they're so, so beautiful. Thank you, Suki.
Thank you.
Big kiss. Bonking noise again, my favorite bonking noise. So that is our Suki, of course. Our next artist is Sylvia H Goulden. Sylvia is displaying 3 pieces from her monoprint series called Power as One. And I'm going to read from her statement. And you'll see she wrote a haiku poem and I simply couldn't resist. Sylvia wrote, I created this series of monoprints as my thoughts reflected on the strength we gain while working and creating together with close friends. After completing 2 or 3 of my pieces, I became engrossed with the idea of expressing the importance of women uniting to become more powerful. I created more than 9 pieces in that series with the thought of exhibiting them as a grid. And to further express my thought, I wrote this haiku. gathering as one mind, friends through the seasons of life, dancing their power. I just adore that. So welcome, Sylvia Goulden. Are you there, Sylvia?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, you said mostly about this series, and I really got involved with it because it just kept moving on, and in using warmer colors and cooler, these nice soft colors, and it's monoprinting. And I used a drawing that I did as a template because I felt that she was her feet were planted, and it showed strength and power and reaching for for what good can come to you. In the centerpiece, and the one on the left too, you see kind of a shadow figures. And, I feel that it's significant of our spirit guide or an angel, or even thoughts from a friend that help us feel strength and power and guidance to face all of the things that we've had to face through this past year, and kind of always, for the good and the bad. I think that I showed, they're shown as a grid, they become very powerful. And I think that that's about it for this particular series. I enjoyed doing it so much, and I kept just making more and more of them.
I love it, and there's again so many motifs that come up. Again, you gave me that. It seems like they're reaching this orb. It's, are they dancing under the sun? Are they dancing under the moon? But they're dancing, and again, the fact that you are a dancer always informs your work, and I just love that the dancer, the dancer, is always present. It's always with you in every single one of your pieces, even in the abstract works. It's in your lines, in the figurative. That was, again, one of the sort of the thoughts about this show.
And I feel like that is, representative of the earth, and that the earth is part of that gives us life. And so, the middle one is kind of throwing it around a bit. But the other thing I want to do is say thank you so much, Petra, for all the hard work you do in making these shows possible, and your excellent choices in making a beautiful gallery every time. And this show is so vibrant and has a lot of vibrations.
Oh, thank you
very much.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind. And another thing I wanted to say is because, again, as I think about these pieces, is I can see how personal this work is for you, because you are such a loyal friend, and you're surrounded by such such a wonderful tribe of women and female creatives. But I know how important that dynamic and that community of fellow creatives is, and I'm just always so inspired by all of your friendships. Each one of you that is in that circle, is that you guys support each other so much and lift each other up and inspire and critique, and it's just it's really so heartwarming, and gives you just something to hang on to, especially during this last year that was so hard. I don't know how we would have done it without each other. And I love, again, the idea of celebration was so important for this show. So I thank you for that, because I feel like we're right there. We're right there. We're going to be dancing in no time.
Thanks.
Thank you, honey. Oops, there goes the boink again. That is Sylvia Goulden. Our next artist is Anthony Caldwell. Going to embarrass him. He's also one of the presidents of the IAA USA, and we're so proud that we get to exhibit his work in the gallery. So the work that by Anthony are the two centerpieces on this wide shot wall. And I'm going to read from his statement because it seems to be what I'm doing tonight. I really also love this essay. It goes, Caldwell's current body of work is comprised of alluring urban scenes that explore the transient effects of light and color with a photorealistic quality. Natural light sets the stage of each composition, with sunset and twilight serving as his favorite times of day. Vibrant changes occur within the surrounding atmosphere as the sun descends just below the horizon. The sky gradually transforms into deep shades of blue. Sources of natural and synthetic light begin to offset the impending darkness with radiant illumination. Shadows become elongated and dramatic as nightfall settles in. Architectural structures appear mysterious and stoic, with brilliant flashes of light peering through the sky. Emblazoned with color and palpable energy, Caldwell deftly brings these subtle details to life. Oh, welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you and hello to all of the fellow artists here. I was fortunate enough a couple of weeks ago to be able to stop by the gallery and drop off some work and got to see all of your amazing work. And I feel very, very honored to be part of this show as a group. You're all very amazing. And Petra, that's a tribute to, once again, your brilliance in creating such an amazing gallery. Well, you know, I don't know exactly how I could follow up. I think you said it all in the description, but I will add a few things. So when architects are trained, they're trained how to design a building or a house. They understand the engineering, the structural elements, and some historical elements. They will try and understand how light plays in the structure, how sound works. They may adopt the design to specific use, like an auditorium or a library. But there's a quality that buildings inherit, I think, over time after they've been sitting on a roadway for a while. Both these shots are somewhat older structures. And it has a little bit to do with history, but it has to do with emotions and just a feeling as you walk by them, especially at night. I find structures get illuminated in various ways. I've traveled quite a bit, and I find, unfortunately, cities that are very smoggy have the most interesting nights because the smog, even though it's horrific to breathe, makes beautiful imagery with light bouncing through the various types of lamps that are in cities. But when I look at these structures, you get this emotion about them. The late night rhythm, the one on the left, is from the perspective of looking down at it, which is a little bit different. Normally we perceive buildings and experience them as we walk by and we look up. That's typically it. This is looking down a bit. And it was actually part of a larger series that was done, looking down at the city at night, sort of peering into streets and down roads, and just giving you enough tantalizing detail in the windows to wonder what's going on in there, who lives there. Every building has a story to tell. And so the histories are also equally fascinating with many structures. So this is kind of a tip of the hat and sort of tantalizing way of saying there are these amazing stories. The other image is also part of the same series, but it's actually looking up Night Street. And again, it's this play of light, how light saturates onto structures, especially older structures, and how buildings off in the distance tend to fade in and fade out. And you get a snapshot in your mind of what you think it looked like, but a lot of it's your own perception being played with in the light and the dark. So This was kind of the beginning of my journey. These are actually two of my very first pieces. They date from over 20 years ago. And they opened the door of how I could combine my own profession at the time, that of architecture, and also photography and painting, all in the same sort of bucket. And I have worked at that diligently for the last 20 years.
Thank you. Yeah, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And I was thinking, Anthony, about there's so much to unpack around what you do. I'm going to go back to the two shot for this. I was trying to put into my own head sort of what makes these are photo paintings, which is sort of a term that best describes that it's photography, but they've been treated in a painterly way so that they become photo paintings. But I kind of cracked up because what I ended up with was kind of a recipe. And I was breaking down what I call the Caldwell effect, right? I said, okay, so I have like 2 parts love and knowledge of architecture, understanding that architecture is a living thing. 2 parts painterly influences, your father's paintings, Velázquez, Turner, Monet, and Hopper. 2 parts drama, chiaroscuro, which I also call meltiness, and that's an official term. And then add to that I'm so sorry, I jumped ahead. The chiaroscuro is, of course, the relationship between light and dark, the intensified darkness and dark to light ratio. Add to that the meltiness, the liquefaction. And then the final element that creates the Caldwell effect is the orientational transposition. The verticals, elongating the verticals. We won't go too much into it because that's the Caldwell effect, but that gives it this vertigo effect, this drama. And I unpacked it. It took me some doing, but I think I now have an idea of how you do what you do. I couldn't do it, mind you, but I can understand it.
No, I think you nailed it exactly. The one thing I will say about the elongation effect is that one of the reasons I really feel that's an important effect in these images is we experience very tall buildings, they're very tall. And it's always a bit of a challenge to try and capture that in an image, to be able to express what is that feeling about standing in front of this thing that's very, very high, and how does it feel? And so just tweaking things a little bit tends to put that notion in there, kind of a hint of what it's about. And I'll give you my last reference, of course, is a Blade Runner reference, because there's this one tiny scene that's been hugely influential in my work, believe it or not. It's when he's sitting at the piano, Decker's at the piano, and he's looking at the photograph of the replicant who has no memories, but they gave her memories. And the minute he picks up the photograph, if you watch for a second, the shadows animate, but only for a second. And so you're left with an impression that the shadows moved, but you can't really prove it. And so I've always liked that in imagery, to sort of get people's attention by that sudden little play that just, what did you think you saw? Well, it's gone now. So.
Beautiful. I love it. And to that point, I feel like it's kind of related. I had a client in the other day, and he was looking at them and he said, "Oh, I love that they're on fire. The buildings are on fire." And I looked at them and I realized, you know what, you're absolutely right. They are on fire. I just never realized that before. But when I looked at that light, especially in the late night rhythm and also the night street, it seems like there's flames coming out. So did I see that? I think I saw that. I'm not
right.
Sure. And memory, again, circling back to the different themes of the show. There's memory. So thank you, Anthony Caldwell. Our next artist is Nurit Avesar. This is a detail from her painting, The Long Way to Childhood. I'm going to read again from her statement because it also just explains, well, before that, I have one more thing to explain about Nurit. Nurit Avesar is a process-based mixed media artist and painter. who has been described by art critic Shana Nies-Dambrot, amongst many other things, as intensely poetic. And I just think that's probably the greatest compliment anyone could ever get. So I just had to share that. And she would probably laugh if that's what I picked out of her essay about Nurit's work. That was the thing I picked, but it's just personally for me, I think it's a huge compliment. Now we'll talk a little bit about process. I'm going to read Nurit's statement. The Long Way to Childhood. This painting was done a few years ago, 2015-16. It was a different and perhaps simpler time than today, 2021. I named it The Long Way to Childhood because of the playfulness I felt while creating it. My practice is rooted in the process art movement. I paint, glue, sand, and tear away multiple layers of painting. I often collage rust, fabric, and other materials to that compound surface. This particular mixed media piece is made of paper, cheesecloth, oil acrylic, graphite, and color pencils. The rigorous process of tearing finished paintings, adding and rebuilding layers of unlikely materials in order to merge the distressed surface into one coherent image, metaphorically alludes to the power play throughout history. It is about forces that tear the fabric of societies and the creation of a new reality from the old fragments. It invokes the re-examination of cultural legacies and historical events and their weight on the present. Please help me welcome Nurit Avesar.
Hello, everybody. I hope you guys can see me. Anyway, I guess, Petra, you said it all in my statement. And I really believe this painting relates to your show statement, the introduction to the show, this very careful optimism. This piece, some of my work are a little more, I guess, serious or more political. But this one I just had a lot of fun playing with yellow and felt like I'm playing in the sandbox. So there's not much else to say about it. And in my process, I have, I think, maybe 4 layers or maybe in some areas 5 or 6. So I just kept sanding and painting again. And finally I said it's done. And that's it. So let's hope we have good summer and socializing and meeting in the gallery in person. And thank you. Beautiful show.
Thank you, but I'm not letting you go yet. I have some questions. Okay. So first, because yellow is, I mean, it's, when yellow is done right, there's few things that are as beautiful, but yellow is very difficult. And you know, yellow obviously also relates to so much to the Van Gogh show that we have, the Cynthia Ann Swan solo show. So it's a very important color. But when you chose to work on this piece, did it start with just the?
No, it started with magenta. I think sometimes you do the opposite. You get like, I mean, there's many layers. So some of them are yellow and yellow, but actually started with magenta and you can see it coming through in some layers. So yeah, I just really had, I was in particularly good mood. I guess when I started it, I started a couple weeks, I put it aside and then I ended it up. I had a show 2016. So I finished it for that show. But yeah, I just said, let's try yellow and magenta. Why not? I mean, let's just go the way. So that's it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
The next question I had for you was, now I know that you also, of course, were at one point a graphic designer and an illustrator.
Right.
And as opposite as you can be from this purely abstract, materially focused work. So my question to you was, does any of that other painter influence this work, or are there actually 2 Nurits that are painting?
I think there's two Nurits, which is kind of could be confusing. And if I do one thing, I always feel guilty. I don't do the other style. I did start as photorealism and figurative painting. That was my style. For a while, I was painting this in this kind of style. When I painted this series, I made maybe 20 paintings, but I worked on them at the same time. So for 2 years, I had nothing to show, and then I had 20 pieces to show. So I've kind of looked up, and people told me, you paint a little bit like Mark Bradford. And I looked at his technique, and it's in a way it's similar. And it's kind of very rough, and I use electric sander and sometimes broomstick or walk cleaner, really rough material to create the texture and to rub the material. So yeah, I guess you just go through periods of life and you do different things. So I really enjoyed getting dirty doing this type of work.
For the sandbox metaphor, which is, so you're being quite truthful in that. I love that.
Very physical, yeah. It was very physical work. At that time, I had a very large studio, and in a studio China Island in Camarillo, and it was an old school that is not used for school anymore. But we did have a sandbox, and maybe it was influenced by that. It was just a feeling of vast space and sunshine, and I could move about and lay all the pieces on the floor. And I guess I was more playful than now, definitely. Maybe I'll go back to it, but it was a very playful kind of a period.
Yeah.
Very true.
Writing down, note to self, must get sandbox.
That's right. So
thank you, Nurit. And this brings us to Jonathan. Jonathan Jerald, I'm going to embarrass him as well, is the other co-president of the IAA USA. So we are representing tonight. We are definitely IAA USA representing. So Jonathan's work are the two pieces left and right flanking Anthony Caldwell's work. Jonathan doesn't really like to talk about his work a lot. He feels that they should speak for themselves, but I did manage to wrangle a few sound bites from him, which I'm going to read over these, the presentation of the pieces. So that, first of all, these are digital photo collage creations. And he writes, I think I liked surrealism and Dada because I embraced the absurdist counterculture ideas when, oops, sorry about that. The absurdist counterculture ideas when I was an art student in the late 60s and 70s, and a bit of a wild child. The idea that dreams, myths, random images, and ideas welling up from the subconscious are clues to our true nature. So with that, welcome, Jonathan. Are you there? Jonathan, Jerald?
There I did. I unmuted myself. So thank you, Petra. As always, your introductions are fabulous, and I don't have a lot to add, but these two pieces I'm happy to talk a little bit about. One of the ways that I like to work, actually, if we could look at the other one first. This one, intersection, is interesting. I started layering landscapes, and the background in this is this obvious cityscape, but there's maybe 25 or 30 layers from different streets in different cities, and I layered them so that none of them appear distinct. None of them you couldn't identify the specific location in any of these in either side. But what struck me the most about it, in the foreground, I laid this intersection, the striped lines on the street. And when I thought intersection, I immediately started thinking about the intersection in our lives and started looking for images of people. And my process is to sort through thousands of images until I find things that strike me. And these 3 images just grabbed me. And it seems to me that it's fun also to play with space. Obviously, we have we all work on flat spaces, but it's great to give them depth. And putting different things in the foreground and different thing in smaller images further back creates these great dramas. And in this case, there is this interesting emotional social drama going on. I don't quite know what it is. The thing I like the most about this, of course, is the flying baby. You could never have enough flying babies. And this was an image that I found. It's actually was done by a photographer tossing her child up in the air. Yes, and so the child was being tossed up in the air. She took this wonderful image that is a very dense, a very vivid image, and I was able to combine these in a way, kind of a dance among these 3 human beings. And the dance, of course, is the character in the back. And if we go to the other image, you'll see the things that what ties these 2 pieces together is that is the same dancer there at the top. And this was well, that first one took a long time and a lot of thought and a lot of playing with it and experimentation and taking things in and out. This came together almost instantly when I found the photograph at the bottom, which you can't ever improve upon. It's just such perfection. It's so delightful. It's an old archival image of a squad of cheerleaders practicing in front of their school, and the photographer caught this at exactly the right instance. There's a sense of exuberance and the wonderful feeling of flight and lightness and life is just great. And I simply added the panel at the top, which is just a few layers, layer of clouds, the blue layer, and then the lower portion of a woman's body ascending. I just think ascending in jubilation. So this is just a piece of pure happiness. So that's all I have to say about that.
I love it, and it's you of course you brought us further into the images, and the complete abandon is fantastic. And so as I was of course thinking about your work, I came up with a few more ideas, and one of them is I feel like you're one of the last bastions of the lost art form of irony, which is how it differs from sarcasm, in the sense that I think the main element is humor and empathy versus just hostility as a means to an end. So irony has this delicious sort of love of humanity and healthy dose of irreverence, and you always nail that. And the other thing I realized is, I'm gonna boink first, in going back to the wide, is that I discovered some things about your work. First of all, I think that your penchant for the vintage images is a thinly veiled nostalgia and perhaps a longing for a simpler world. The other thing is you have a very interesting relationship with gravity. If you look at your characters, a lot of them are flying. Again, this idea of abandon, and I think this goes back to the birds. I do not think that that's a coincidence. That, there's an airborne denominator. You're flying humans, you're bird humans. But in the human series, your characters, your subjects are weightless. They're either physically suspended in dreamlike animation, or they're mentally and spiritually unburdened by fear of consequences. I feel like you've kind of created this world for them that is free of judgment. And that's why they can be so kind of deliciously carefree and, you know, just perfectly content as they are, as these odd, eccentric combinations. So it's a lovely, refreshing perspective, and it's such a nice break from all the heavy stuff that we have to deal with in the day-to-day. So thank you, Jonathan. And thank you for always challenging me to come up with verbiage. So this brings us to Ryan Lane. Ryan cannot be here tonight, and this is a detail of one of his paintings called Painting Number 40. It's part of the 5 pieces he has on display this month, but most of you might not be familiar with Ryan. He's shown with us once before a few years ago, and he's in Wabash, Indiana. So I'm going to read his bio as a way of introducing him to you guys. Ryan Lane is a professional painter and furniture maker who graduated from Wabash College in 1985 with a degree in fine art. Ryan has exhibited his paintings and furniture in both solo and group shows in numerous galleries, the Indiana Museum of Art and Wabash College. The paintings are clearly influenced by the techniques and tools that are part of the furniture making process. Oh, boinking sound. Here we go. So his statement reads, I am trying to capture a moment where a delicate balance is on the verge of collapse. The work has been described as landscapes, natural processes, or images of cellular activity, all hopefully eliciting an emotive response. My hope is that you feel a very real formal tension that is visually appealing and alive. He also says, it seems to me that I'm painting events, and in the paintings of mine that I like the most, the stasis of the horizon is in jeopardy. So he's truly fusing his 2 worlds, his art background and training with his the love of furniture making, and specifically it's Japanese furniture. And in doing so, he is exploring the concept of stability and flux versus stasis constantly. He even told me that when he creates his furniture, he likes to play with the perception of fragility. He likes to put very, how do I say, robust pieces on very thin legs to kind of test your comfort, I believe, and your sense of what is fragility, you know, what is stability. He also has a love, clearly, of patterns, and he likes to work with grids as a means of reining in his chaos. And he told me, and this cracked me up, he says he applies a mathematical intuition as a guide for his color application and placement. And to me, those 2 things are completely antithetical. There can be no such thing as mathematical intuition, but that's just me. I'm just, you know, I have a problem. I have a complex, ambivalent relationship with math. So that's where that's coming from, don't mind me. But I love his work, and I do love what he does. And he says that ultimately what he tries to do is he seeks to harmonize the disharmonious. And I feel like he does that. And at the same time, it's vibrating and ties back into the show and the idea of vibration and energy. And one last little anecdote is one of our artists, you know, Richard Bell, who, of course, in one of his many previous lives, was a programmer. He said he was looking at it and he said, I swear it's code. I know it's code. I just can't figure it out. And that just cracked me up. So that is Ryan Lane. And that brings us to our Karen Hansen. Speaking of harmony, this was, speaking of harmonizing the disharmonious, this is our master of harmony right here. Karen Hansen, this is a detail from her painting, The Geography of Hope, which we exhibited last month. But when I curated this show, I realized I needed this painting. I absolutely had to have this painting because, as I mentioned, I needed these points of peace and the yin and the yang and balancing the intense vibration of the Ryan's patterns and dots with Karen's stillness and peacefulness and serenity. So I begged and she said yes. So I'm going to also read her statement because it's beautiful. She writes, "This past year has been a difficult one for everyone. We've had the threat to our health that has come with the pandemic, to say nothing of the isolation the lockdown has imposed, or the stresses that have been put on our economy. And there are more issues: racial tension, economic disparity, climate change, to name a few. It's no wonder we feel anxious. My paintings are lyrical, atmospheric abstractions of meditation and memory. They are meant as resting places, escapes, serene escapes from these unsettling issues in our hectic, complex world. They point to the quiet mysteries of our lives, and they are offered as moments of reprieve." So please help me welcome Karen Hansen.
Thank you, Petra. And thank you for another beautiful gallery full of wonderful work. It's always a pleasure. I create paintings as refuges, both for myself and the viewer. And the process for me is actually a meditation and a journey. This piece is a statement about our lives in the midst of this pandemic, as we try to hold on to whatever threads of normal we've had in the past. All our routines have been upended. The future is always uncertain. The suspension of knowing leaves us only a vague sense for what will happen next. We dangle over the abyss of the unknown. And still through this unease, we have hope, as always, because that's the only lifeline we ever had to the future. That's what my painting addresses. I want to talk for a moment about my process. I typically begin with a color idea, allowing the painting to unfold, responding to whatever the painting process reveals to me. It can change many times and in many directions, with layers that are transparent, translucent, or opaque, always looking for luminosity. As I work, I trust that the direction of the painting will become clear to me, hopefully. I try to stay open and flexible. It's a process of inquiry and investigation and discovery. The piece really tells me how to proceed. I only have to listen and trust.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gosh, yeah, this is you kind of really caught me with that. That was so beautiful and poetic. Thank you so much. And,
Wow,
and thank you also for allowing me to show this piece. It really is one of those, there's these physical places throughout the gallery, you know, where you have physical reactions. And this is one of those where you just kind of settle. As I've told you before, you're probably sick of hearing it by now, but I always feel that you kind of distill emotion into color, that you're an alchemist of sorts. You take emotion and you figure out how to make it come out as color on the other end. And the other thing is that there is a timelessness about your work, and it seems like it's classic, and it can exist outside of time, and no matter what else is going on around us, we can kind of take a time out and just sink into it. But then the final thing that I think is wonderful is that you've figured out how to leave enough space for us, so that you kind of set the stage, but you're allowing us to have our own experience. You know, we can travel into it, and we can, you know, capture and process as much as we want, but it's kind of a difficult thing to do and difficult to talk about, but it's something I really love about your work. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
There it is again. And that brings us, of course, to the one and only Suzanne Belcher. Suzanne, this is a detail of one of her new paintings called Homecoming. And Suzanne is displaying 4 paintings this month. In addition to the 2 blue paintings on the right, which we discussed last month, which have happily sold, and as a pair, bless you, even better. It's always so special when pieces sell as pairs. But bless you again. But I wanted to also, I have a confession to make, and I want to ask Suzanne, because Suzanne graciously allowed me the creative license to hang one of her paintings sideways. She will talk about it more in detail, but the piece on the very left, which is called Joyous Reunions, is actually a horizontal piece. But because so much I love symmetry, and it made such a fantastic looking wall, she allowed me to hang her piece upside down, basically. So I love you, Suzanne. Thank you for putting up with my obsession with symmetry. And it does look really good that way. But when we get to you, we have it in its correct orientation, and we can talk about it. So the first pair, of course, I wanted to read her statement over both pairings. This whimsical, fun, ongoing series that I call Coming Together continues to be a feel-good metaphoric for me. Each square, each pod lives and plays nice together in cyberspace. There is no fear of being different, no prejudice, homelessness, despair, isolation, depression, judgment, or anxiety. Diversity is embraced as a must in cyberland. Strangers applaud, the more welcome they are. So as they migrate together in unity, like birds of a feather, each welcomes joyous reunions at homecoming. Nicely done. Please welcome Suzanne Belcher.
Thank you so much, Petra. You make me laugh. And I want to thank everyone who took the time tonight to join us. It's really appreciated by everyone. And as always, thank you again so much, Miss Petra, for your curatorial brilliance and featuring my art in this amazing venue, along with these other talented, inspiring artists. And of course, not to leave out our one-of-a-kind Jason Ruscio for his incredible lighting and photography that makes our work and the gallery sing. Really, thank you, Jason. So tonight I'm talking about my 2 new pieces in the show, Joyous Reunions and Homecoming. It's a continuation of my traveling space squares and pods that I've actually grown really attached to. It's getting kind of weird, actually. And I was so thrilled, really thrilled that someone loved my pieces, my blue pieces, enough to take them home, to give them a new home. So they were purchased at the beginning of the show. So they accompany my 2 new pieces, as they were really the beginning of my cyberspace odyssey. Underneath it all, excuse me, all of this work really has to do, which I discovered as I'm working, with the outcome of isolation, wanting to see our friends again and wanting to travel, but wondering what it might look like when we start to venture out again. It's not going to be the same, but it will be a new journey. So with Joyous Reunions, which is the piece on the left that you're seeing on the screen, and thank you, Petra, that she confessed that she hung it vertically. I looked and I thought, wait a minute. When I saw the pictures of the show, I said, my little, what really gives it away is my little shadow image, which is in there, is on its side, you know, but it works. And I would give Petra any curatorial license to do anything she wants with our work. So thank you, honey. Anyway, I'm losing my place here. I always try to tie my work together with various subtle techniques, such as using connecting lines, which brings things together, ties them together, and with various subtle other techniques like balancing color by using what I call the 3-finger theory. That is placement of the same color in 3 locations in the piece at least, and varying the size of similar shapes, all part of a composition. However, this piece, Joyous Reunions, seems to be pretty void of most of the rules I use. There are some that are there, but it was really intentional. I wanted to convey that the squares and my traveling pods had a mind of their own, collecting fellow sojourners along the way toward a common destination, and that is finding a new home in cyberspace. So all shapes, sizes, and forms are navigating together through unfamiliar, maybe dangerous and scary celestial terrain that they've never been in before, hoping to find a welcoming home in Cyberland. And that's not unlike the migrations that we are experiencing here on Earth right now, at home on our own borders. Each traveler hoping against all odds that something better is at the end of their long journey, which, as we know, is not always the case. However, this work was designed and needs to have a happy ending. So these are happy pieces. With Homecoming, which is the larger piece on the right, I just love this piece. It really sings to me. And like its companion, Cyber Serenade, which was a larger blue piece that was sold, it's fun and whimsical, and it has a happy ending. I have a lot of collage in the pieces, including more of the vintage Hmong fabric from the Hill tribe in Thailand. The centerpiece was actually its own piece in a little frame in another show, and I didn't like it to be isolated, so I felt that it needed to have center stage in this piece. And again here in this piece, we have no fear, there's no discrimination, there's no prejudice, there's no homelessness here, there's no despair, there's no isolation, there's no depression, there's no judgment or anxiety. Diversity is welcome in Cyberland, and each of these little traveling pods feels connected and embraced by the mothership with comfort and with many more reunions and adventures awaiting. And the series is going on in my studio. So well, we may see what's happening in the next show. But in conclusion, I again, want to thank everyone who took the time to be here, and my inspiring, brilliant fellow artists and travelers. I really enjoy and get so much out of listening to what everyone has to say. And I think, to parrot what Edem said about Petra, your introductions to these shows, honestly, don't throw these away. They're really brilliant. You are just such an amazing storyteller for us. I just can't thank you enough. I'm so proud to be here. And also Jason, what would we do without him too? So to do my little plug for Gloria Delson Contemporary Arts, everything you see here tonight is for sale. It begs for a new home, somebody to love these pieces. There's such beautiful work in this show. So if you see something you love, don't wait. Somebody else could buy it, actually. Contact Petra and she'll work with you. you know, the sales that are made in this gallery help support the artists, and they keep this wondrous venue open. So thank you again. Thank you very much.
Gosh, thank you, Suzanne, for your work, and thank you for always being my, you know, my wing sister, and doing the plug. Check is in the mail as always. It's in cyberspace somewhere. I had a few kind of capping thoughts afterwards. You know, again, I'm always so thrilled when we get to show your paintings, because most people know you as a rather edgy digital photo collage artist. You know, you're such a documentarian of our city, and you boldly go where many people don't dare to go, and you have such a great eye, and it's such an eye on the pulse of the times. And then every now and then you go to that place and you bring out your paintings, and I just adore them, and it's so much fun. I'm thrilled about this series, and I also have to tell you, every time you show paintings, they sell. Just thought I'd mention that. But I love all of your work, and I would never want to miss your edgy photo collages. But this series is super special to me. I'm so glad you're jumping in and you're committing to it, and I cannot wait to see what's coming next. So
Thank you so much.
And then the other thing I was just going to mention, there's a few anecdotal and visual points that I love about these. Of course, the playfulness, but I love also there's a kind of a reference to modernism, and I love sort of an abstracted Calder Miro, Piet Mondrian, Klimt.
Wow. Yeah, wow. Yeah.
And Mead Belcher, like they've been Belcherized. And the other thing is, because of the inclusion of those tribal fabrics, I feel you connect, again, you're connecting lines. I love that image. You're connecting to Sylvia also with her work of the tribal influence and the nod to feminism and feminine culture. The fact that, you know, women have been the weavers throughout time and are also responsible for weaving it all together. All of it, the unity of the human experience. So I love that you bring that into your work. It's a beautiful element. So thank you, bravo.
Thank you so much, Petra. Thank you, thank you.
Next, thanking Suzanne. Hold on, everyone, notice again, upside down. Sorry. Thank you, Suzanne. You're the best. This brings us to Bill Sherwood, also the piece above my head. This is a detail from his painting, Sun Going Down, Gone. And I hope you're not sick of me reading this poem, because I've read it before, but I just really love it. It's kind of a jazz beat poem that Bill wrote about this piece. And it goes like so. We cannot imagine 24 hours at any time, but our sun can. A never failure, our eye in the sky, where perfect trajectory begins, then ends at the same place, with every hour passing moments to final seconds. A journey of personality changes, bright to shiny, murky to dark, then sometimes, however, not at all. Sometimes, however, not at all, when clouded, at least from what we only see. There are blue and bright skies, laughter above and beyond. The confusion is we, perhaps, all of us. We are only the only ones who leave. Sun going down, gone. I butcher that poem every time. I swear to God, I'm gonna have to keep showing it until I get it right. Sorry, guys. But another thing you'll obviously notice is this ties back throughout the show, the circular motif, being one that's very important to me. Symbol of, again, our community, our unity, our circle of friendship, our circle of family, and the fact that we made it another year around the sun, you know, another cycle of the sun from day into night. And so we keep going with each other. And again, I'm so grateful that we all have each other to dance this crazy dance. The other thing, of course, I love to mention about Bill's work is, again, there's a wonderful sense of playfulness and drama. And right now I'm seeing bubbles in a glass of champagne, but I think it's because I would really like one. And finally, as I always want to mention, when you come visit the gallery, Bill is also our artist in residence and has a showroom / studio in the back. So please be sure to ask me about that and come see his work, and also all the wonderful artists we have in our salon, in our storage program. We have so much to share. So I'm really excited to welcome you again here. I'm sorry, Bill, you couldn't be here today. And this, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our group show, Vibration. And this, of course, brings us to our star of the night, Cynthia Ann Swan, and what I call a master class in glass, her solo show, V. Cynthia Ann Swan, V, debuts the Kiln-Formed Glass Artist's long-awaited solo show centered around the paintings, life, and letters of Vincent van Gogh. Cynthia is an artist we have been working with for many years now, and started originally in our original gallery space on 6th and Spring. And so this is indeed a joyous reunion to have her back in this new space. We are so honored, Cindy, that you have given us the opportunity to... Is this me? I'm gonna stop. Sorry, guys. Is my audio, is it clear now? Anybody nod? No? Okay, I'm gonna back up because I heard some distortion and I wanted you to hear the words about Cindy. So I'm gonna go back to the easel. Okay. Yes, so Cindy is an artist we've been working with for many years. It started in our gallery space on 6th and Spring. And I was tying in Suzanne's work. We're so happy to have her back, and it's a joyous reunion for us. So thank you again for the honor, Cindy, to be able to share this very personal essay in glass. Like I said, it really is a master class in glass. I'm going to read now from Cindy's exhibition statement. And forgive me, I call her Cindy. Of course, it's Cynthia Ann Swan, as I take you through the installation. V is the culmination of my 18 years of passionate obsession with all that is Vincent. I have done multiple deep dives into his work and his life, and have come to feel a personal, intimate connection to Vincent, the man and the artist. My research has evolved into this reflective retrospective. Vincent was a loving, spiritual, lonely, and tortured soul. His art was both a source of personal expression and professional rejection. He was misunderstood, rejected, and tormented by nearly everyone he encountered. His illness imprisoned him, and love set him free. His sanctuary was the enduring bond he shared with his brother, Theo, to whom he wrote 874 heartfelt letters over the many years, sharing his thoughts and ideas. Thanks to Theo and his wife, Jo, those letters were preserved and provide an amazing insight in his private reality. V strives to invite the viewer to experience Vincent on a deeper level. It references his letters, his thoughts, and the themes of his work as an impassioned celebration. Oops. Please let me introduce to you Vincent van Gogh. Next, I have created an overview of each of the works in the 5 series, and Cindy is then going to go into them. Again, I have all of these pieces are listed in detail on our website. So if there's anything you want to go back to, you can find it under current exhibition. And if you have any questions at all, you can type them into the chat box and we will read them to Cindy at the end. So as we take you through this series, I would like to read a statement in Vincent's own words, which is part of the incredible detailed research of Cynthia Ann Swan. What am I in the eyes of most people? A non-entity, an eccentric, or an unpleasant person? Somebody who has no position in society and will never have. In short, the lowest of the low. All right then, even if that were absolutely true, then I should one day like to show by my work what such an eccentric, such a nobody, has in his heart. That is my ambition, based less on resentment than on love, in spite of everything, based more on a feeling of serenity than on passion. Though I am often in the depths of misery, there is still calmness, pure harmony, and music inside me. I see paintings and drawings in the poorest cottages, in the dirtiest corners, and my mind is driven towards these things with an irresistible momentum. With that, I'd like to welcome Cynthia Ann Swan. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, I'm here. I know it's the third time around, but I've tried to give fresh information this time. So if you've heard my other talks, hopefully I will still surprise you with some things that you might not have known about Vincent. I feel I need to explain how I work because if you haven't heard from me before, you wouldn't really get that. So I consider myself to be a modern abstract impressionist. I am very inspired by French Impressionism. And I also like to have my stuff focus on nature. So in that way, I really relate to them. I work with a big concept. I call it my collection. That's the main idea. And you can think of it like a bubble diagram where the main idea is in the center. And then spokes from that big idea go outward. And there's smaller bubbles that have some aspect of the main idea that they're going to answer to. So my collection is the middle bubble. And then the smaller bubbles that relate to it, I call my series. Each series has a number of pieces in them. It's always an odd number, 3, 5, 7, because I believe that, at least the way I like to see my work, I think that symmetry tends to be static at times. And to have an odd number, I think it helps your mind to move through things more. So most of my work is in series of 3, but in this particular one, the trees happens to have 5 pieces in it. All right, so in the series, all the pieces have to obviously relate to the main idea of the series, but they have to also be connected by 2 other elements as well. So it can be color, it can be format, process, size, but there has to be at least 3 things that tie them together to give you some continuity. And all of the series doing that together essentially vibrate into the main idea. So that's how I work. In V, I'm trying to introduce you to the Vincent that I've come to know and love, and maybe surprise you a little bit if there's some preconceptions you may have had of him. You may find yourself surprised at what I have to say. But all in all, I hope that this is an appealing show for you to see aesthetically, and I hope to have done him justice. So I'm going to start with the letter series, which is what you see here, because I think if you do want to know more about Vincent, you should start with his letters. They're available online. And once you start reading them, you're probably going to want to keep going. because they are amazing. His ability as a writer is, in my opinion, as strong as his painting was. So I've already discussed the first and the third pieces here, and I'm going to be focusing on the center one. I call it Letter from Saint Remy. What I've done here is taken those letters that are available online and I have photocopied them, and then I create a custom stencil from that photocopy. And using the stencil, I use glass powder, and I stencil the powder onto a very special kind of paper that can be fired inside of glass and stays paperish. I age the letter, and then I've actually included this in layers of glass. So what you're seeing is a replica of his actual letter. It's all his own handwriting, and I tried to make it look like I came across this letter and I just stuck it inside there. So I'm hoping that you see that. His work, the famous pieces that he's done, are centered around last 3 places that he lived. And Arles was the first. And had a lot going on with his yellow house and a cafe and public gardens. And then he went to Saint Remy. Most of that time was spent in an asylum. And then he wound up in Avesar, which is the last place he lived in France. And that's where he died. So we're focusing on the letter from Saint Remy. And the particular fragment comes from a letter that he wrote to his brother Theo. And he called it his Road with Cypress and Star. That little sketch you see there on the side, that's actually the sketch for that painting. You've probably seen that painting, but this is the idea he had for it, and he sketched it in his letter and sent it to Theo, and he did this a lot. And so I chose that letter because he wrote it while he was in Saint Remy. While he was in Saint Remy, he spent almost a year of his life in the St. Paul asylum, and he had a bedroom with bars on his windows. He signed himself in. He also signed himself out a year later. But during that time, he had 3 really, really bad episodes where he almost died. But then that would be followed by periods where he would feel wonderful. What you probably don't know is that most of the famous paintings, including Starry Night, were painted from his asylum window through the bars, and he had to just leave the bars out. So this letter is referencing Starry Night very loosely. In the background, you see the moon and you see the concentric lines across it, and that's sort of the technique, the process he was using in Starry Night. You also see a bare tree in back of it. That's because during this period, he did a lot of bare orchards. He did a lot of empty orchards. And so that's that. And the little red square in the bottom left-hand corner, that's birch trees. Now, I know you're not thinking it's birch trees, and I don't blame you, because in France, they have a specific way of trimming, of pruning birch trees, where they cut basically the tops off and leave the short trunk. And they keep doing this until normally a skinny birch tree winds up being a trunk with a whole bunch of top on it. And that process of pruning is called pollarding. It's P-O-L-L-A-R-D. And he has a fairly well-known painting. That's it. I literally painted that from his painting. I just did it really tiny. And it's called Pollard Birches. So that explains why they don't look like birches. But I just wanted you to know he likes birches, and so do I. So that is a lot of what's going on with this particular piece. I have put a quote in stenciling, and you can see it there. You might even be able to read it, but I'll read it for you. It's his words that I have stenciled in English instead of the French, but they have been able to create a font from Vincent's handwriting. And so I used that font, so it looks like he wrote it, to stencil the powder onto the glass and include it. So that particular quote that I included there says, "Be clearly aware of the stars and infinity on high. Then life seems almost enchanted after all." I thought that was fitting for the fact that during this period is when he did create Starry Night. He signed himself into the asylum on May 8th, 1889, and he left slightly more than a year later on May 16th, 1890. Just to give you some references, he painted 150 paintings during this year of his life. A lot of paintings. During this period, he had several paintings that were actually shown in Paris. His brother Theo was an art dealer in Paris, and Monet at that point, the French Impressionists were getting pretty upset with the Academy, which only wanted like romantic kind of painting being done. They didn't like this crazy modern stuff happening. And so they wouldn't accept any of the Impressionist painters into the regular gallery shows. So they set up shop across the street and they called it their Salon du Rejects, which is people who are rejected. And in that show, his brother Theo took several of Vincent's paintings and he included it in that first show that had Monet. The word impressionist got coined in that show because one of the critics saw it and didn't like it. And he was focused on one of Monet's paintings at the time. And he called it Impression. It was an impression of a sunset because the piece was called Impression Sunset. And so the Impressionists, that's how they got their name. So Theo had this little show and he couldn't go to it because he was in the asylum. But that's where the very one and only piece that he ever sold got bought. And he sold a piece called Red Vineyards, if you want to look that one up. So that was that period of time. Okay, so moving on to the paintings. There we go. And if I didn't say it ahead of time, the small bubbles that relate to Vincent are letters, his paintings, his portraits, a process he used called plein air painting, and a subject he liked a lot, trees. So those are going to be the series. So this is the painting series. I really didn't intend to copy Vincent and try to copy his style. That wasn't the point. It was to introduce you to parts of Vincent that you might not know. But I did feel like I needed to kind of accurately present something called his painting. So this was the only place I really did try to emulate what he did. And each of these is a piece that you're probably not aware of. And they were done from the 3 different periods. So going from left to right, it would be Arles and Saint Remy and Avesar. And I've already discussed the first 2. So I am going to be talking about the 3rd painting, and I call it Lavender Wood because it has the nice purple trees in a beautiful meadow, and there's flowers and stuff. And I have to tell you, it's actually a detail of one of his paintings, an accurate detail, but it's the lower right-hand corner of a bigger piece that is titled Undergrowth with 2 Figures. So the actual painting that he did has these 2 sort of shadowy figures. We're assuming it's a man and a woman in the center of the painting, a little bit further back than halfway into the background of the painting. And when this was shown, this was one of the pieces that was shown in that show too, which is another reason I'm mentioning this to you. This was a critic and what he had to say about it. He didn't like the piece. He said, "A rhythmic pattern of thick brush strokes animates the surface of this painting, and trees and rows recess toward the dark background, making the couple seem trapped, angry, lost in the dense vegetation." Now that was his interpretation of this beautiful violet lavender forest. And I thought you'd like to hear something that Vincent said about this painting in a letter he wrote to his brother Theo. He said on June 30th, 1890, so he was already in Avesar at this point, out of the asylum. He told Theo that he felt that the most important things about this was color and hope, and that it would uplift the spirit, and that, here I'm quoting right now, it was the violet trunks of poplars which cross the landscape perpendicularly like columns, the depth of the undergrowth in blues under big trunks with the flowering meadow in white, pink, yellow, green, and long russet grasses and flowers. So I don't think he saw this as this big ominous painting. So it's a piece you may not even know if you saw the big piece, but I'm sure you wouldn't have focused on this little corner of it. So that was surprise. I wanted to surprise you a little bit with something that you might not have known about his paintings. He had an attitude about paintings, and this is why Vincent said that he painted. He said, "Art is to console those who are broken by life. I want to touch people with my art. I want them to say, he feels deeply, he feels tenderly." And I think he did. All right, so now we're going to move on to the self-portraits. Oh, yes, my husband just told me something that I probably should have mentioned a long time ago. Yeah, I work in kiln-fused glass. It's just a small point. Yes, my medium is glass, and it's formed in the kiln. And everything that you see here looks like paintings, but it's all glass. All of it is glass. And I kind of left that out, so I'm sorry about that. He just made me correct that. So there we go. All right, so these three pieces are based on the center self-portrait. The two on the side I've discussed in prior talks. The one on his left is complex contrasts, and that dealt a lot with the highs and lows that he had in his own life. And the one on the right was Vincent's blues and yellows, essentially the same as highs and lows. There were copper lines in there that were suggesting the bars that he had to paint through, and so on. But they were profiles that I generated from his original painting in the middle. And I just did like a color lay, like you would in printing. So there's like 4 different layers of paint going on, and that's how I got those portraits on the side. Now I'm going to actually focus on the painting in the middle. This is one of his iconic self-portraits. He did many self-portraits. He really felt self-portraits were really important. Now, photography had been invented at this point. They could take photographs. Camera was definitely invented. However, he didn't think much of photography. So here's what he said about photographs and self-portraits. "I always think photographs abominable, and I don't like to have them around, particularly not those of persons I know and love. Photographic portraits wither rather soon, and much more than ourselves do, whereas the painted portrait is a thing which is felt, done with love, a respect for the human being that is portrayed." He felt he did so many self-portraits because his feelings changed often. And so what he was trying to do was capture the emotion he was in at the time that he produced his self-portrait. Most of his self-portraits were completed in a day. That was it. The whole painting, he finished it. Because kind of like Jackson Pollock, if you're familiar with him, who took paint and threw it onto canvases, large canvases, he felt that the throwing action of that paint was his signature of the feelings he had when he was throwing the paint. Well, in a way, Vincent kind of felt that way too. Every brush stroke, every color choice he made, he was trying to convey the man he was at the moment that he did this. Some of his self-portraits actually have names like self-portrait with hat or whatever. This one was just called self-portrait, 1887. He painted this while he was in Paris, before he went to Arles, before his periods of doing all those other paintings. He had just come to Paris. He moved there from the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, he'd actually been a minister for a while, and his painting style was in the Dutch thing, and it was very chiaroscuro, high contrast, rather dark and gloomy things about potato farmers and stuff. He gets to Paris though, and he meets Monet and all these people doing color, and it's like, woohoo, I'm doing color now. And so this one was the last self-portrait he did right before he moved to Arles. And I love it because I think the color, and I did try to emulate his self-portrait. I painted this by hand, looking at his self-portrait, but I did it with palette knives and everything the same way he did. And if you go to the gallery, you can touch it, and you can always touch my glass. Like, that's fine. I have no problem with that. It's archival, so your fingerprints are not going to hurt it at all. Now, dropping it, that's something else, but you feel free to touch it. But if you do, you'll feel all the ridges and stuff, and that's very much like the way he painted his self-portraits. They're very tactile. So I chose this one because I thought it represented his love of color, his newfound experimentation. And, you know, he was hopeful at this point. Life was good. He was starting to, you know, really get excited about art and moving on with his life. So that's how I want to remember him. And that's why I chose this particular self-portrait. I have to check my notes to see if I forgot anything. Please forgive me. Nope, I got it all on that one. Okay, so now we're going to move on. And I'm going to go to the plein air painting series. All right, so this was my attempt to try to experience painting the way Vincent preferred to paint. When he could, he liked to paint outside from life. And he was forced to have to paint quickly. He used oil paints. So he had to lug these canvases out, and his easel and his paints and all this stuff, and paint. And then he had to lug it all back. If you've ever painted with oils, you'll know they take forever to dry. So here he had this canvas covered with oils and trying not to smear it and juggling all this stuff going home. So I thought it deserved me to try that out. And of course, I work in glass. I don't work with oil paints. And so that meant I had to invent some stuff. I had to invent, first of all, glass canvas, which I did. If you look closely at these, you'll see a texture. It is real texture. I often use media or tools from different occupations in what I do, and I make up techniques. And this one, I was using what they call icing mats, silicone icing mats, for lace that they put on the sides of like wedding cakes and stuff. And so I figured out, well, maybe I can make, you know, glass lace basically. And so I did, and it's very fragile, so you have to be careful with it. But I made these laces, and I made it with a burlap pattern. So it had the sense of the threads on canvas. And then I carefully took that and I put it on a sheet of glass and I fired it on. And so it was really stuck, but still had the texture and everything. And those are what I lugged outside with the paint that I made out of glass and the same exact easel that he would have used. I used a French plein air easel, and I sat there in the hot heat of the high desert in July, and I painted from life. And I've done it, and you know, more power to him, because that turned out to be a really hard thing to do. So what you're looking at here is I did roses. Those 9 roses are from my own rose garden, and I did them outside, and each one of them was a specific rose, and I've combined those into one piece, and I'm calling it Miss Cindy's Roses. And then the other 3 that are on easels in the gallery, they're double squares. This is the period of his life where he decided to do double squares, which is like 2 square canvases stuck together. And what he did was he took legs of different sizes of canvas and made his own frames and strung his own canvas at that point. And he was the only one doing that. And we're not really clear why he did it. He felt like trying that. And he called them double squares. And mine are 12 inches high by 24 inches wide. And his were slightly different dimensions, but I was limited in the glass I could get. So that's what my sizes are. And he did a lot of courtyards, that kind of thing. So that's what I was trying to catch in my attempt to play outdoors in that kind of plein air painting style. I'm going to concentrate on one, which is the front lawn of the Gray Swan house now. That's sort of tongue in cheek. I am the swan. It is a gray house. It's my house. And it is our front lawn. But the reason for such a quaint title, he often titled his works like that, like Garden of So-and-so. And so this is the front lawn of the Gray Swan house. And it looks pretty much like my front yard. And so we've mounted all of these outside. And the reason for that is if you ever go to France and you go to Arles, they will take you on the path of Vincent. They have gone to the actual site, in the cases that the places are still there, the actual site where Vincent painted his plein air paintings. They've erected a copy of his painting as if it was sitting there on an easel while you're looking at the actual scene. So I forgot to mention that last time, but it is kind of a cute little thing we did. We have now mounted these outside in the same way that VanGoghMuseum.org has done, so that the painting is from the same perspective that I did the paintings from. So there you go. My little nod to Vincent there. So yeah, they were hard to do. But so, all right, so the series that I'm going to discuss is the trees. And I did trees because this is where I sort of met Vincent and we sort of married our two interests in art. I absolutely love trees. If you've ever seen my other work, you'll see trees show up all over the place. You know, I do all kinds of trees, dancing in Snowflake's Head, dancing to the music trees, and I do leaves and stuff. Well, he did trees too, sometimes different trees than me. He liked to do a lot of cypresses. He did almond trees. He did birches. He did cherry trees, a lot of pine stuff. And so I thought, okay, I'll do trees that I like, but I'm going to use my own techniques in each of these pieces. So each of these pieces is not only the subject of trees, which I share with Vincent, but it's showcasing one of my personalized invented processes to make that happen. So the one that we're going to be focusing on this time is birches, white birches. And there's five pieces in this series. I probably should mention that. Creative Path, Rainbow Eucalyptus, which I've discussed, Greenwood. And then the other ones, do we have the other page with the other two paintings? There we go. Okay, then we have the White Birch Forest and Deep Woods. I'm going to focus on the White Birch Forest for two reasons. I've already mentioned to you that he liked birches, so we have that in common. Birches were one of my favorite trees, but they're also my mother's favorite tree. I'm from back east, so the kind of birches we have are white birches. They're sometimes called paper birches. They don't live long. They're a very soft wood, and they do disease pretty easily, but boy, are they pretty while we have them. And so these are birch trees. And the technique that I am showcasing here is, well, there's a couple of them. I did the stenciling from actual photographs of birch trees, created my own stencils. And so the ones in the background, the ones that aren't sticking out, that's how I got those trees, is stenciling from photographs of birches. And then the ones in the front, I stenciled them, but then I used glass powders to do the shading and give them a three-dimensional sort of a feel. And then one of the processes I use a lot is contour fusing, which means I'm not fusing it at full temperature so it doesn't flatten out. it still stays elevated, just really stuck on there with slightly curved edges. And my next series or my next collection that I'm almost done with now is has birches in it too. So there's going to be a connection. So when you see that one, which is called Tapestries, you'll say, oh, wait a minute, I remember she did birches before. So that kind of does it. I don't think there's anything else I left out, right? No. I'm done. Yay. Thank you. I wanted to thank Petra for putting up with me for all these months, for letting me go away when we moved up here to the high desert, because when I was down there, I was so into the exhibiting and all the time. And then we moved up here and things were different. It took a year to get the studio set up here. And, my health kind of has gotten worse and stuff. So I haven't been able to produce things like that. And I was trying to do local things, and then COVID happened. So I decided to take the COVID year and develop a professional website. We have our gift shop set up here for things that we make out of recycled glass that are functional things that you can get. And this collection. So the new collection has been a COVID year collection. And I contacted Petra and say, can I come back? And she said, yes. So thank you, because I think this space was just meant for that. And I'm so grateful for you and for Jason, who did his very best to photograph everything and even did the video. And, I appreciate all the effort that you put in. And so I hope I've given back enough. And I'm really pleased to have virtually met all these other artists, but I sure wish we could meet in person. I'm looking forward to that. So now I really
Oh gosh, well, I couldn't be more thrilled, and obviously I'm so excited to have you back. It's really, you just blow me away. For everyone here, if you have any, beyond just interest in art, but if you're an artist who also wants to learn about glass, beyond just the overwhelming, just beautifully overwhelming attention to detail and the physical beauty of these pieces. Cindy is also such an amazing teacher. And she is actually set up with her studio and an adjacent Airbnb where you can book a weekend with her, a masterclass weekend, and she can, bring you into the beginnings of kiln-formed fused glass. And I can't say enough good things about you as an artist and as a teacher. And once again, you brought so many new details to the show, to all the aspects of Vincent. I am just continually amazed by you, by your enormous brain and your gifted hands and your huge heart. I don't know how you do it, what you do. I don't think you sleep is, I think, the answer. I don't think you sleep. But something else I'm gonna tell you is an artist friend recently sent me an article from the New York Times. Apparently there's an article on Jo.
Oh.
Recognizing her, and the article was called "The Woman Who Gave Us Vincent van Gogh."
Absolutely. It's her. I don't know if you know, but
it's soft, right? Or you got
no, I don't know if you know, but Theo died 6 months after Vincent did.
Oh my
so
God.
All of this was on Jo. Yeah, Jo did it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently she and it just extraordinary. I'm sure the screenplays are being written. But gosh, I can't find the words. Cindy, this is so amazing. I love this show so much. And I thank you. It's really been a gift, an incredible gift. I'm out of words. I don't know what to say. I love all of you guys. This concludes our solo show. Thank you, Cindy. This concludes both our exhibits, Vibration and V. And I just am geeking out, realizing that they're both V's, vibration and V. So there's my little symmetry geek out right there. Please join us now. Make me take the microphone away from me. We're here for a Q&A with our artists. Don't go anywhere. Let's take a peek and see what we have. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now, so hopefully you can see the artists' faces bigger. So I'll stop share. Okay. Let me get rid of that. And let's see do we have any questions? Do we have any Q&As? Okay. I don't know if it's a glitch or not. So here's, oops, I didn't mean to do that. No, go away. Go away. Anthony, help. Anthony is our webmaster, so thank you for that. Okay, first question for Nurit. Is it harder to work in large or scale works or small scale works for you? Do you prefer one over the other? And do you like painting upside down? Nurit, were you able to hear that?
I am, yes, I'm here, I'm here. I'm sorry, I couldn't, the connection is not very good. What did you say? Hold on, I'm going to a better place. Okay. Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Of course. Is it harder to work for you to work on your large scale mixed media pieces or your smaller mixed media pieces? And do you prefer one over the other?
It depends really. During the pandemic, I felt like I need to work small and little details. But large is always easier, definitely.
Interesting. Very interesting. Excellent, thank you. The next question. Suki, how did you get your name?
What?
How did you get your name?
How did I get my name? My name is Suzanne Catherine. And my father, who couldn't help but nickname people and mess with their heads and what have you. And he called me in the beginning, I was, I guess, 2 years old, called me Susie Kate. And which even at that age, I said, no. And so the next thing he came up with between the two names was Suki. And for the longest time I had that name, but he was the only one who was allowed to use it. And when he passed away, I didn't think much about it. I missed it. But Suzanne and I were in a life drawing class, and our teacher said to me, that's, you know, what you've done is a certain thing, and you have to sign in a very quick, small way. I've had a lot of energy. And I just signed down Suki. And I feel that that's my real name because my dad gave it to me.
Wow. Love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next question is for Sylvia H Goulden. Since you work in so many different media, but you seem to have a real love of paper, I'm not sure these two are connected, but it is true. What is on your artistic bucket list? What is something you haven't done that you're perhaps afraid of attempting, but excited to do so? Oh, you're muted. Okay.
Oh, thanks. Sorry. I have worked in large canvases, but not for a very long time. And I've tried so many different styles and mediums and so forth that when I go back to that big canvas, I'm failing to try to do anything. So I'm really struggling right now to get to back to using painting large. But I'm still doing lots of collage and mixed media and watercolor and also my monoprinting. So it's just, I think whatever I'm still trying to get through to that canvas.
Wow.
And maybe combining some of the other things. I just haven't quite got there yet.
Thank you. The next question is for Siri. Siri, do you have a favorite time of day to paint? Meaning, specifically, the time of day in which to paint and which time of day to capture in painting. There are two. Were you able to hear that, Siri?
No, it's because you cut out slightly, so I didn't hear my name.
So sorry.
Do I have a particular time of day? My favorite time to do anything, hands down, is the morning, because I'm still got energy, and I like, if I can do early morning. I love the light in early morning, but you know, sometimes not so easy to do that. I love those kind of times of like early morning, and I love dusk. You know, the times when the colors are less screaming at you, because LA has got very bright lights. So I like to have some sense of shadow. The question was about time of day, yeah?
Perfect. The next question is for Anthony Caldwell. You have 5 favorite movies since you led with Blade Runner. Give us as many as you want. You give us one if you only want one, but if you want to name 5 favorite movies other than Blade Runner, which are they? That maybe influence your work or don't influence your work.
Oh boy, since Blade Runner, Dream Atlas has a lot of interesting, not so much for the visuals, but more for the conceptuals. Let's see, what else? You know, movies don't really come to mind as much as articles, readings, books, just paintings on the wall, other photographers. I think those would probably be the 2 that immediately come to mind.
Is there one of those art forms, be it literature or that influences your art the most? Do you feel that sort of is someone you go to?
That's a good question too.
Oh, there they are. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
So
I would have to think about that a bit. My influences are not necessarily specific individuals as much as a collage of fragments of numerous individuals, if that makes sense. So I kind of compose and put together various imagery based on multiples of different ideas. I love the work of Velázquez, for instance, Monet. Ansel Adams had an amazing sense of black and white and light and dark. I think probably one of the more influential moments in my life was being able to hold and look at one of Leonardo da Vinci's small paintings. It was really quite remarkable. A friend of mine, this was many years ago, was a professional photographer for museums. So I had a rare opportunity, and to just be able to look at the beauty of the light and dark and color, very influential, really stuck with me.
And there's actually a follow-up question to, again, going back to the Blade Runner reference, saying, this is from Jason, actually. I was pleased that you made a reference to Blade Runner in your photography. I see it in the strong contrast and darkness. I'm curious if you've ever photographed the Bradbury building.
Yes, in a word, absolutely. I have photographed the Bradbury building quite extensively. Over the right before the pandemic, they were kind of cracking down on hanging out with big cameras in there. So I don't know if you could get one back in there, but oh yes, I have indeed.
Wonderful. The next question is for Jonathan. I'm going to pick on him because he's looking down. Jonathan Jerald, Are you in the house? You're muted. The next question goes to Jonathan Jerald. Jonathan, I see both Fellini and Buñuel cinema in your images. Do you? You're muted, by the way. We can't hear you. Jonathan, can you hear me? You're muted. Gosh, how do I, Anthony, can you text him?
I can, but I think he probably knows that he's muted, maybe. All right, I'll text him.
He knows he's
Oh,
muted.
no, he knows he's muted. And is that what you prefer?
Jonathan figures it out. Sorry, guys. This one goes to Ryan. Ryan, you're not there, but I would say your paintings are conspiring with the chaos, not dissimilar from your statement, harmonizing the unharmonious. Next comment goes to Karen Hansen. Karen, all of your paintings bring me a feeling of great ease and tireless curiosity. God, I love photographing them. Jason Ruscio, especially in close-up.
Jason, thank you.
The next one goes to Suzanne Belcher. I so much see what you described as people coming together again post-COVID. It's joyous, but it's also something new. And yes, it's a little scary. Beautiful work.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm back.
Jonathan Jerald.
Sorry about that.
The question for you was Buñuel and Fellini.
Did you say Buñuel?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Buñuel is one of my favorite filmmakers, and I think about him often. Particularly a piece called what is it called? The Exterminating Angel, which is interesting now that I think about it. It is a piece that I love a lot. Yeah, you know, the absurdity and the dark humor and the social commentary are all things that are, I think, part of my my work.
Nice. True dad. The next comment goes to Cynthia. Cynthia Van Gogh said in the opening statement Petra read something similar to what I often say in my own way. Everything you do in your life means absolutely nothing, and it's very important that you do it. But your show, Cindy, means to me absolutely everything, and it is so necessary that you do it. Perfection. Thank you. Hope she got to see that. I don't see her on the screen. There's another Cindy comment. Cynthia, 9 flowers is heaven. Oh, and then Leslie did make me happy. She says, amazing show. Thank you to all the panelists. This was a friend from San Francisco that I thought wasn't going to make it on. I'm so happy she did. Oh, Carol Cirillo Stanley was in the audience. She says, again, we are in awe of each artist and their artistic skill. The show is perfectly curated and exceptionally presented. Kudos to each of you and to Petra, who is amazing. How sweet. Thank you. I love you, Cece. Nurit, I'm going to embarrass you. Nurit says, great show and interesting talk. Carol, a question for Anthony. Do you have a favorite story about one of your pieces?
Ooh, well, I have several different stories, but I think the one that I think of that puts a smile on my face, kind of under the category of be careful what you wish for. Many years ago, I got a job photographing the city from above at night, Los Angeles. The client was several law offices that were in the top of the library tower. So they were able to get us access to the helipad at night on the library tower. And so we hauled all our gear up there it took like I think 3 elevator exchanges to get to the top. We got to the top, we set it all up. It was gorgeous. It was an astounding experience to have the entire city below you lit up. And the helipad is actually unlit, which turned out to be the amusing part of the story, which was when we were done, it was of course pitch black, there was no moon. And we realized that we can no longer identify the stairs that go up to the top of the helipad, and that any other option except for the stairs would lead to an unfortunate outcome for us and our equipment. So we kind of crawled around. This was before iPhones, so we couldn't light up the place with an iPhone. And we sort of managed to crawl our way around to find the staircase, but it was well worth it, but it was, it really stuck in my head.
Wow. Yeah. Great. That's a great one. This is another one to Anthony. How long does it take you to complete a work?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, actually taking the photo part is usually the shortest for me. After many years, I'm what's called a blaster. This is what my friends accuse me of. My photographer friends, I have one who will spend seriously like an hour and a half setting up one photograph. I'm one of those people who's shoot them all and sort it out when you get back. So I shoot very rapidly. But then the selection process probably can take up to a week, depending on how much time I have to devote at it and how I feel about the images. How some images just work, other ones I can see the potential, but I know they're going to take time. And then the actual processing of the imagery to get them to the final point, again, that can take, in theory, it should only take a day, but in fact, it takes probably 3 or 4 days, trial and error. Sometimes I'll do something and I think it looks great and I come back to it the next day and I look at it and it looks horrible, you know, typical art stuff. And then other times I think something was really bad, I'm going to have to start over, and I look and go, wow, that really came out nice. So it's kind of a veritable thing, really.
Ah, fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Also, I'm switching now to Suki. Rick Friesen wrote a note saying that he was apologizing that he joined late and he didn't get to hear you speak, but he hopes to connect with you soon and maybe hear it later. We're recording, so you can share it with him. I wanted you to know that. The next question is for Suzanne Belcher. Do you start your paintings with a sketch, or do you just show up at the canvas and find your materials? You're muted.
No, I rarely sketch. I did a little bit with this recent series, however. I'm a spontaneous, intuitive artist, really. And I've said before, I usually have an intention about the work. And once I start, it just sort of does itself. I can paint over and over and over. 1 or 2 of the canvases that are in this show have several pieces beneath them. But I just go with the flow.
Excellent. Thank you. The next question goes to Siri. Siri, you talk about hard and soft edges. I photograph bougainvillea often with a long lens, which creates similar hard and soft edges. I'm curious, are you also a photographer? Beautiful painting.
Well, thank you. I am a photographer, but a bit of an amateur, I would say. But I'm doing more and more, and I certainly am noticing that people who are good photographers have no problem when it comes to composition and that whole depth of field idea. And it's certainly, I think it helps a sense of composition, taking pictures, and I love doing it, but I'm not a photographer. I think it helps sometimes with reference to work, even though I don't usually work directly from photographs, just being able to crop, and play around with compositional ideas.
Very good, thank you. The next question is for Edem, who's not with us. So maybe one of you, whoever wants to answer it, jump. The question is, why do you say that working big is difficult? So I guess we'll rephrase the question. Do any of you find working big difficult? Who wants to take it?
I'll take it. I'll be one that takes it. You can see behind me a couple of my the largest canvases that I've done. My work has, because I became a collage artist, really, my work was always very small. And I would always feel minimalized in shows because so many of my fellow artists painted these large works. And I thought, man, nobody's going to even look at my work. So as Sylvia said, it's not easy to fill. If you've been a collage artist or printmaker, it's not easy to fill a large space. So but with the pieces that I've been doing recently, 24 by 36, it's been easy actually. So I don't know, maybe I've grown.
That's great. And also I feel like I'm going to add on to that, one of, I think, the most difficult things in pretty much any art form is negative space / meaning stillness, right? And the work that you've been doing has so much of that, really, allows for the negative space. So kudos to you.
Yeah, well, thanks. And that was always really difficult. I had to fill everything and it was too much. And it was really hard for me to bring in that quiet space. So thank you.
You're welcome. The next question is to me, and I'm not really sure how to, well, I know how to answer it. Petra, being an actor, do you find your dialogue with Steven Schubert, also an actor, easier? It's not easier, even though there is some shorthand that we have. There's certain things that we can talk about that we can refer back to, like we can say, oh, this is like a Meisner exercise or something, and we'll know exactly what we're talking about. There's also a certain emotional freedom that I feel that sometimes happens around other actors, like you emote more easily and it's okay. When you emote all over the place. I think the first time I met Steven, I probably ended up sobbing hysterically during his intake interview. But being an actor, he was fine with it. He's like, but what this actually brings me to is that I feel this, one of the things I love about working with all of you is that I feel all the art forms are so connected. And the shorthand that we all have is actually just one of the creative vernacular, the agony and the ecstasy that comes with that, experiencing the self-doubt, finding the courage to put yourself out there, the need to do so, and just the creative impulse itself is and the choices you make throughout your day is there's just the way it's a way of looking, it's a way of so I feel no matter our medium, be it words, be it collage, be it a camera, be it paint, be it glass, of course, it's the same vernacular. We have the same vocabulary. And that's one of I think the reasons I love working with all of you, because you're safe, you're my people. I can get away with my edges, and my gaps, and I feel like you're gonna fill them And anyway, I'm going on too long. Who are you, person? Why did you ask that question? Next question. Okay, we did Suki.
Yes.
Yeah. I take such joy in photographing your works in close-up. I simply cannot stop. The detail and depth in every piece is amazing. I'm sorry, that's not a question. I just needed to tell you this.
Thank you. I will paint tomorrow because of that.
Jason is another one. Sylvia, is the subject only reaching towards the circle of goodness, Earth, or is the circle also coming towards the subject? Is the question. I guess what I'm asking is, are they equally interested in each other?
I think so, absolutely, because I think that for me, when I think of the energy and output, it's all one. All of our environment, the flowers that grow, the earth thing. I mean, we're all constant energy. So the symbol of the world, or the earth, the circle, and the pull towards each other, I think it is, because which way is it going? I think that earth gives us and we give back if we can. And yeah, it's someone said earlier, circle of life and family. I think you did, and it symbolizes that. You know, circles are a lot. I use a lot of circles and spirals in my work, and the ongoing energy of life is symbolized by those things, I think. So yes, I think they are going towards each other.
Love it. Great question, great answer. Thank you. And as I'm scrolling through, because I went out of order, forgive me, I've read some of the later questions first. I'm going to throw one at Suzanne along those lines. You spoke of the connecting lines in your painting. What are the connecting lines in your life?
Wow.
Wow.
Let me think. Well, I'm really connected to nature, so that's a connection for me. I'm connected to my small family. I have a lot of connections to the past, and not so much in the work that you've seen, but my earlier work. I have a lot of, I call them totems or symbols that were meaningful to me. Staircases took me back to my childhood when I was 4 and 5, living in Prescott, Arizona. And my mother was an entrepreneur. She had a children's clothing store. She made all of it was during the war. And she had to give up the store because her mother-in-law called in the loan that she'd given. So my parents were moving back to California, and I was put in a Catholic convent, really, a boarding school at that age. And I literally at 5 ran away. There were some people that couldn't take me for the weekend, and there were these long stairs. So later in life, my husband, mother, and I went back sort of as a rendezvous, and we went up to what was no longer a Catholic school. Everything was paved over, and there was an office there. And I said, I know there were stairs here. And they said, yes, they are. And they were behind the bushes. And so it was really meaningful to me. So that's in a lot of my work. I'm connected there. I also, like Suki mentioned, she had an asthma attack. I'm an asthmatic, but very controlled. So windows and doors and sky are very important for me. So I'm connected to that because it's part of being able to breathe. So those are just a few connections.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Suzanne.
Welcome.
The next question is a comment. It goes to Bill Sherwood, who is not here, saying, Bill, you are a rock star. You're not there, but I will ask it anyway. What is next, brother? Petra, do you know? I do not. I am waiting on pins and needles. I know he's been working on something. I've seen glimpses here and there, and it's pretty damn exciting. But no, I don't know yet. Hold on, there was another question and it just went away. Cynthia, I know from past conversations that you receive messages, creative impulses,
Right.
Spirit messages or what, however.
Yep.
How often do they influence and inform your work?
Oh, that's never been asked before. All right, I'm just going to be honest. You guys are all artists, and so I'm sure you'll understand that. From the time I was little, I get what I call angel messages. I'm asked to say something often to somebody I don't know, or do something for a reason I have no idea why, and I do it. Some of the requests have been pretty crazy. So as far as it relates to my work, I think the biggest time it ever did was in my thesis, my MFA, my doctoral thesis. I thought I was going to be making pretty well similar to what I with my tapestries, but they had other ideas. And so I went home on a Friday, having just told my advisor what my thesis was going to be on. And I came back Monday and told him it was all changed. And I basically did my thesis on entrapment, the entrapment series. And my color theory, I had a huge color theory thing, and that was about the reason that color influences our emotions. And the whole idea was to get people to empathize with people who are currently trapped by some unknown trap, by rubbing the insulation off ourselves, because we've been there before, we just don't like to remember it. And so the whole thesis was a really difficult year to do, and it wasn't my idea. But that was probably the most intense time that they've ever influenced what I did. And it's come back full circle because as part of the original V exhibition 2 years ago that I did up here, I added a 6th series, and it was release. And so the pieces that I had done in my graduate time, which the primary thing was a wall called The Wall. It was the entrapment cells, and it had 3 figures. They were stages of entrapment, which was panic, struggle, and depression. And that would just repeat over and over again. So those figures came back, but they came back with the because it was huge glass wings I did, and I had a whole statement about how Vincent felt released by his art. So I guess in recent times that's how it's influenced me too. But in a broader sense, I feel like what I do in general is kind of trying to work for the light, trying to bring light and beauty, usually through nature, but into people's lives, maybe not that free, to remember what that feels like. So I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah. So honest answer, don't judge.
You're, Petra, you're muted. We didn't.
All of that. It was genius. It's the most profound thing I have ever said. I just said that was great. Thank you for your honesty. You're safe here, so no worries. The next one kind of goes out to the group. Jazz, classical, or what else? Do you create music, and if so, what? And you guys can take turns. I'm going to mute myself.
I listen to jazz, rock, hip hop, and classical, and it does lead me and help when you're creating intuitively, and I change sometimes. It has to be something I like, otherwise it gets quickly changed to another station. But I mostly have music on when I'm in the studio.
I listen to jazz, yoga music, a lot of yoga type, and I don't listen. The only thing I don't listen to is classic. I don't know why. But I just never thought about it. But I listen to everything as long as it's a lot of indie music, as long as it's feels right.
I always have music on in the studio. I have 3 cats in the studio, so even if I'm not there, music is on for them. And it's usually the classical station until opera comes on, and I'm not a huge opera fan, so it gets changed. But like Sylvia, I like to listen to jazz. I listen to rock, K-Earth 101. And I always have music on in the studio.
My favorite is Latin jazz.
Oh, or classical guitar. Oh my gosh, I love it.
I listen to Bruno Mars.
Oh yeah, he's fun.
Saw him in concert 2 years ago.
Well, I have to say my bachelor's is in music, right? And so I was a music major, opera and orchestras. We were in 2 orchestras when we were down in LA. But I don't have music on ever when I'm working because it hijacks my emotions. I'm so emotionally affected by the music that when I hear the music, it makes me feel what it wants me to feel, not what I need to feel to make my art. That's me. John likes trance, so he has to wear headphones because that I can't deal with that. So.
Jazz and classical for me.
I think it leaves us with Jonathan Jerald and Karen.
Yeah, I like jazz. I can't listen to rock. I love rock, but I can't listen to rock because it's too specific and it would be distracting. I mean, you know, the Ballad of John and Yoko is too full of specific images, and that would distract me from wandering freely through the images that I spend most of my time swimming among.
Nice. Okay. Karen Hansen.
Usually nothing, usually silence, but I like rock.
We now also have 2 more questions that came in. Question for Suzanne and Sylvia. Oh my God, I just asked that. That's so funny. I swear, this is 2 minds. Brilliant. Whoever you are, you're brilliant. Anonymous attendee, you're brilliant. The question for Suzanne and Sylvia is, do you listen to music while creating? If so, what kind of music is your inspiration? Okay, we need to talk. Whoever you are, you know, we're clearly connected. The next one is from Leslie Haralick. I love Siri France. I hope to own one day. Gorgeous paintings, and all of the other artists were magnificent.
Oh.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. Then I always have to ask this. It's well, I do have a question for Karen. Karen, do you write poetry as well?
Well, I don't write anything. I am totally visual. I am not verbal. No poetry.
I'm going to challenge that, because when you were reading your notes, your sound bites, there I smelled like a latent poem. In there.
Yeah, well, it's so buried, so deep. No.
Throwing it out there. It's just throwing it out there.
But no.
Okay. Cindy, do you have a favorite Van Gogh painting?
I would say my favorite one is probably irises, the iris, not the iris that I did, but his regular irises one. My second favorite is, I think it captures the essence of who he was.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. Are you, oh, we have, hold on, something else came in. No, we did that. Well, kids, do you want one more, or do you want to wrap it up? One more question? It's kind of I hope it's not going to take us too far down a rabbit hole. I always like asking it. It's kind of my private obsession. Is, do you have a creative ritual? Do you have something that you like to do, or smell, or taste, or hear, or whatever before that kind of primes you to launch into creativity? Anybody? No?
Nope.
I put on one of my husband's very large formal shirts, and that covers everything. And there's a sense that he's here.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Thank you.
A ritual.
I have one. I water the plants around the studio and in the house, and I don't know, in California, you can always water more and more. So yeah, I just do my rounds. That's it.
Nice, nice. Anybody else? Anthony, no?
No, not that I can think of. I mean, I suspect if I analyzed my patterns, I might, but if so, I'm completely oblivious to it. It's when I feel creative, it hits me, and I roll myself over from one station to the other and fire up the art software and start going at it.
That's great.
I don't have a ritual, but I try of late to.
Same here. I mean, I would just say coffee probably, but that's not really a ritual, is it? It's just a bit of an essential.
Yes, it is. Go ahead, Sylvia. Sorry, you guys crossed in the ether.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Siri, I didn't mean to. I try to leave something to do or to inspire me when I come especially into the studio. So if I've started something, then I always try to leave an idea that I've thought of for me to pick up, or something laying around. I have 3 different tables for whatever media I'm working in. So I try to leave something to inspire me to get started or continue, so that I have something to do when I get there. So it's there's always a lot happening.
Interesting. I've never heard that one before. That was very interesting. Something to pull you back into the creative work. A
Right. At least I can,
very interesting.
I can start, with that. And then often or I'll leave something, oh, look at this, and I'll leave it, especially with collage, some piece of junk somewhere. And so if I don't feel like doing this, I can do that.
Interesting. Yeah, something to get the machine going.
Yeah.
And I think I don't really have rituals, but if I maybe one, hello? Yeah. Is I always have to straighten up. When I leave my space, it can be messy. So the first thing I do is I get everything in order, try to find all of the stuff that I was working on that's here and there in place. So I guess that could kind of be a ritual.
I do that too. Sometimes I leave a mess so badly, I must do it because I can't go on. Must clean it up.
It's very satisfying to clean brushes at the end of a session. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's a good ritual.
Or finding that brush that you forgot to clean. And it's like, oh my God,
2 days later.
Favorite brush.
Well, I work standing up at my table, and I don't think about it until I finish and do whatever cleaning up I'm going to do, usually brushes, and then I ache from my waist down.
Me too.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
I can't break myself with that. I have to stand up.
Yeah, I can't sit down either, and it's tough.
It's hard.
I just can't sit down. I'm short-waisted, long legs. So if I sit down, it's like I'm a midget. The table's here, and I need to be able to see what I'm doing. So, anyway, I love all of you. This was a wonderful evening. My husband is hungry. I just made him put some stuff in the toaster oven. So I'm going to say good night. And this has been wonderful. Thank you. And I just thrilled to be with all of you. And thank you so much, Petra. Love you so much.
You too. And with that, I guess I'm going to do our little closing speech.
Oh.
Of course, remember, if you're still with us at this point, I think we kind of took off on our own. The exhibits are up through April 30th. We are open by appointment. Please bring a mask. And just thank you, all of you artists. You know how much I love you. Thank you, Anthony Caldwell, for not only being an artist tonight, but once again being our webmaster, as always. And thank you, of course, most especially to Jason Ruscio for the incredible lighting, photography. Literally, the whole presentation would not be possible without him, and the show would not be what it is without his work. So thank you. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and please be safe, be happy, and I look forward to seeing you all really, really soon. All right.
Thank you.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.